Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to have you here today for our Career Development Masterclass. My name is Erica Madison, and today I am coming to you from Boston, Massachusetts. I'm going to invite folks to share in the chat what drew you to this event today. What has you wanting to invest in your career development right now? Go ahead and share in the chat where you're joining from and what made you say yes to this invitation. That'll help me have a sense of who's in the room, and that's always really helpful. It also helps you get to know who else is here, what attracted them to this event, and who knows, you may come away with some new contacts. That often happens from these events. You'll want to make sure that you have your workbook in front of you. I'm putting the link to that in the chat, so you can go to that page and go download that if you haven't already had a chance to do so. That's going to help you stay focused and really get the most out of our time together today. So thanks to the folks who've already started sharing in the chat. We're seeing that we have some job seekers. We have some people who are feeling stalled for, a long period of time, looking to, make progress both in landing a new job and progressing in your career. I'm seeing people share that you're feeling stuck in imagining possibilities for your career. Yeah, I have to say that the word stuck is something that comes up so often in the work that I do as a coach, as an advisor, helping people navigate their careers. The word stuck probably comes up more than any other word I hear. So you are definitely not alone. And I'm seeing other responses from folks from all across the US, from the Pacific Northwest to Massachusetts, seeing responses around in the past, I've done work that lacked a sense of higher purpose, wasn't sure what that higher purpose was. And you want to change that. You want to build your clarity in how you show up in your discipline. And is that as an individual contributor or as a manager? There are questions around that. Others of you are sharing that you're interested in eventually making a switch, but want to think more about a path, and you're looking to build your confidence. So thank you to everybody for sharing so far. Again, these are themes that come up again and again in the work that I do with folks, whether it's one-on-one or in group settings, where you're looking to increase your clarity, you're looking to increase your confidence. So I'm going to go ahead and share my slides, and I invite you to have your workbooks in front of you so that, again, you can get the most out of our time together today. All right, can I get a thumbs up if you can see my slides? Okay, thank you. So today we're going to be covering 4 common career mistakes that I see people making over and over again and what you can do about them. This is really designed to help you increase your awareness and shift your approach. A little bit about my background. It has been a long and winding career path. I started off working in concierge services. After I graduated, it was a tough job market. I wanted to do something mission driven, but I was really having a hard time connecting with opportunities. I was finding that everything required 2 to 3 years of work experience. And even though I had done tons of extracurricular activities, I'd been a leader on campus, I'd been involved in political campaigns, I just really was having a hard time getting a foot in the door. I ended up moving into constituent services, working in government, applying a lot of those transferable skills that I had previously developed working in the for-profit sector, now in government, and was able to continue to build those skills. Later, I moved into career coaching, and I did a whole bunch of things in between, building sustainability programs, leading communications for higher ed sustainability programs, serving as a leader in nonprofit organizations, working to increase green space in underserved parts of the city, or improving urban mobility options for folks who want to be able to bike around instead of being reliant on cars all the time. So lots of different things that I've done in my career. And I share this because I think it's important to recognize that it's not that common for career journeys to be these linear, just straight, direct, logical paths. And it's very common for them to be these winding, circuitous kinds of paths. And there's really nothing wrong with that. It can be very exciting, enriching, fulfilling, impactful. And I share this as my own lived experience, and I help my clients navigate their own often winding career journeys. I want to take a moment, and I'll try to do it without crying. I was crying a lot yesterday. I was at a memorial service for a school principal of mine, Mrs. Barbara Shea. She was an amazing person, and I had the privilege of being in community with a bunch of folks yesterday from my past, teachers I hadn't seen in decades, and neighbors, people from the community, all coming together to celebrate the life of this incredible woman who transformed my elementary school and was a role model and an inspiration and a support to so many people over the years, working in education. And this bowl of M&Ms was there at the Shiva because apparently she loved M&Ms, which was a fact that I was not very privy to about Mrs. Shea. But everybody else, in her family and things like that, who, people who worked with her for decades and whatnot were aware of this. And, I share this to say that there are people who impact our lives, and sometimes we lose touch with them. And yesterday, for me, was a reminder of how important it is to keep the people who are important to us close to us. So, because I lost touch with Mrs. Shea and did not maintain that relationship, I am rededicating myself to reconnecting and staying close to people in my life who are important to me. That can be mentors from my childhood who are still around, so many different kinds of people. And so if there's anybody who you have in mind who maybe you've lost touch with, or maybe you are in contact with still, but there's some deepening of that relationship that can happen, I urge you to take advantage of that opportunity, to lean into that, to reach back out, to make that phone call, to send that email or that text, and take advantage of that time that you have with them while that's still an option. Today, we're going to be talking about mistakes that people make in their careers. And I feel that losing touch, not investing in our networks, are some of the most common mistakes that people make. And so that's the tie-in of my story about Mrs. Shea and how she impacted my life, how she supported me when I started a newspaper when I was 12 years old, how she helped the performing arts group that I got to be part of for years come to my school and give us enrichment during the after school hours so that we could be creative, we could express ourselves, we could act and sing and receive really high quality training in those areas and then be on stage. These experiences really shaped who I am. They shaped my career, they shaped my life. And so I'm grateful to her. And so if there are folks who you are grateful to, I encourage you to take a moment later today and just reach out to them. Along those lines, I want to ask you to share in the chat, how do you tend to consider relationships? Do you tend to think of them as transactional? You give me this, I give you that, thank you, goodbye. Or are they maybe more transformational? A little bit more maybe like what I was telling you about my school principal, Mrs. Shea. And why do you feel that? Go ahead and share in the chat. All right, I'm seeing some B's. And what makes you say that? Go ahead and share in the chat if you're willing. Or you can come off of mute. We have an intimate group here together today. What makes you say B? Seeing responses that people always have an impact and ideally B, but not all relationships make it to the B type. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm seeing some aspirations toward having more of these transformational relationships. So some goals for us together today are to help you increase your awareness of what's getting in the way of moving forward and what needs to change so you can advance your goals. Again, you'll want to have your worksheet ready because we're going to start to get into those common mistakes and some solutions that you can start to employ. I'll also be sharing an offer toward the end, so make sure you stick around. So the first mistake I encourage you to write down is that there's a scattered approach. It might sound something like this. I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to start. Does that resonate with you? Go ahead and put yes in the chat if you can relate to that. Mistake number one. Scattered. Seeing some totallys, some yeses. Yeah, you're not alone. This is very common. Things can feel very overwhelming. So go ahead and write down some thoughts about how this applies to you on your worksheet. And what I'll say about this is that you can start with who you know. Simply start with who you know. And so if you want to write down on your worksheet 5 names of people who you enjoy being around. This could be coworkers, past or present, maybe people you've volunteered with, educators, mentors, friends, family. I did say people, but I know a lot of my clients would want to put their dog's name there. I have a few cat people, but they're mostly dog people. So who do you just enjoy being around? Go ahead and write their names down. You might be thinking, what on earth does this have to do with my career? But trust me, it does. When we think about things like accessing the hidden job market and not simply spending all of our time looking at job boards, it really does have to do with who you know, who knows you, trusts you, likes you, and has an idea of what you have to offer in this world, who sees the potential in you, who knows what you're capable of, who believes in you. That matters. Go ahead and write those names down. Start with 5. You might find yourself wanting to add to that list later. That is acceptable and encouraged. You may not have room for it on your worksheet, but this is to help you get started. All right, give me a yes in the chat if you've had a chance to write down a few names. Okay, terrific. So now we're going to move on to mistake number 2. Mistake number 2 is this feeling that it's just impossible. Just whatever you want just can't happen. Feels maybe highly improbable. Not realistic. Can't happen. It might sound something like this. That won't work because ... fill in the blank, right? So go ahead and share in the chat. Does this resonate with you at all? Mistake number 2, this feeling that it's impossible. Yeah, seeing some agreement there. That resonates. So when I was a law student, I worked with a coach and she helped me realize that what I really cared about was the intersection of environmental issues, law, and policy. And she urged me to go get some experience, mind you, while I was working full time and going to law school at night. So I felt like, how's that going to happen? I didn't exactly have a ton of spare time on my hands, but she helped me realize that it was very important for me to lean into that and to seek out opportunities, however small they might be, that would help me gain credibility, exposure, contacts, experience, skills, you name it, that had to do with that intersection there of environmental policy, law, and well, environment, policy, and law. Okay. And I did. I went out and I connected with a state senator I knew, and I told him that this is what I wanted to work on. And I knew that he shared these passions. And I asked him if he might have a project that I could work on with him. And as it turned out, he did. And so we did. And this resulted in what is now law in Massachusetts around climate resiliency. And that's going back, gosh, almost a decade, I guess, at this point. So that isn't yesterday. A lot has happened since then. I wish I could say that we'd made way more progress on climate resiliency since then, but we still have a long way to go. But that was a really pivotal experience for me, because then when I got a job interview for my dream job, which was to serve as the legislative director for the Environmental League of Massachusetts, which is a role that I went on to serve in for, I think it was about 4.5 years, I was able to say, yes, I have worked on state level environmental legislation. I have conducted research and worked with different stakeholders, worked with elected officials and staffers on Beacon Hill at the state capitol to, write policy. And, that did end up getting passed into law. So, but even if it hadn't, that was sort of aside the point, I had gone through that experience, and that really helped me have more credibility for that role working as an environmental protection lobbyist. My network played a huge role in me being able to be considered for that role as well. So go ahead and write down some notes that you have for yourself about mistake number 2. I'm seeing in the chat also some thoughts about not that it's impossible, but when it happens, I won't know how to do it well. Yeah, so questioning your abilities, your experience, having, like some hesitancy around feeling confident. Maybe you're feeling like you need more certifications or degrees or training or mentorship or experience or you name it, that will help you feel more equipped. I was recently working with somebody who just ascended into a director level role within higher education. And we were working to help them get off to a really strong start in their new role at a much larger institution in this new director role. It was a big step for them. And as a first gen college graduate, let alone PhD, they were, having some sort of feelings of insecurity and am I really up to the task? So those were some things that we worked through together over the course of a few weeks, did some planning. They took very intentional actions, and today they are thriving in that role, really stepping into their leadership potential and just doing incredible work. So when we think about the solution for mistake number 2, I encourage you to think about how you can build momentum through small wins. These don't have to be massive things, but as you achieve small wins, as you achieve small, tangible, specific goals, you can build momentum. So I invite you to put on your worksheet, who will you reconnect with, and name 3 people for this, because that's actually part of how you can build momentum. It's by reconnecting with people you already know. I know that networking can feel really intimidating and stressful for people. And so I really don't think of it as networking. I think of it as relationship building. I think of it as getting to know people and building trust and connection, creating mutually beneficial situations, and starting with the people you know, as I said earlier. So who are 3 people who you will reconnect with? Go ahead and write their names down and then give me a yes in the chat when you're ready for the third mistake. A small win for you this week could maybe be reaching out to a former teacher of yours, a former mentor or colleague, or somebody you volunteered with. Maybe somebody who interned on your team. I know I've had some phenomenal interns over the years, and sometimes I think, oh, it's their responsibility to keep in touch with me because I was their supervisor. But that's silly. Honestly, I realized that yesterday. That's silly. There's nothing wrong with me taking the initiative to keep those relationships going with a message through LinkedIn, a text message, an email, what have you. All right, so let's move on to number 3. This is that procrastination that some of you might be familiar with. Maybe if I just fill in the blank for now, right? What are those things you're doing, whether it's scrolling on Instagram or binge watching something on Netflix or, doing that extra load of laundry that really could wait a few days? What is it? What are you doing? Are you doom scrolling, looking at the news? What are you up to that is really getting in the way of making progress on what really matters to you? A lot of the time, people will come to me and they'll say they want to make change in their career. And then when I start to talk with them about what that would actually look like, all of the excuses start coming up, right? All of the reasons they don't actually have the time or the bandwidth or the money or whatever to focus on making the kinds of changes in their career and in their life that they say they want to make. And procrastination is something that comes up. Sometimes there's some fear going on. I would actually say most of the time. Maybe it's, my current job is really not that bad. Maybe I should just wait a while and see if things get better. Maybe it's, well, nobody's hiring right now. I should just wait. Maybe it's, well, I have this vacation planned in 6 months and I'll be able to get the vacation time with my current employer, but I don't know how that'll go over with a new employer. And what will I say in a job interview if it comes up? So I better just hold off. Maybe I'll just wait until I come back from Portugal or fill in the blank, wherever you're going. And maybe then I'll work on my job search. Or maybe then I'll think about working on how to get a promotion or start my business. So when we think about the procrastination, what is a tool that I like that can help you get past that? It's to make it fun. So if you're dreading whatever the activity is, whether it's searching for a job, working on launching your business, figuring out how to step into your leadership potential, whatever it might be, figuring out that next chapter for yourself. Instead of dreading it and having all of this fear and stress and worry surrounding it and self-judgment and lack of confidence, what if it were fun? What if it were something that you actually looked forward to engaging in? I bet then you would be less likely to procrastinate around it. So I'm curious, what is one way for you to reconnect with people along the theme that we're talking about together today of relationships, connection, networks, and so forth? What's one way that you can reconnect that would be fun for you, that you would actually look forward to, that you would enjoy? Is it going for coffee with someone? Is it going for a hike with someone? Is it taking your dogs to the park together? Is it going to karaoke together or trivia night? Is it getting a few of your favorite people from around the world together for an intimate conversation through a video call? There are so many ways to connect. So what makes you excited? I'd love to hear your ideas in the chat. What's a way for you to reconnect that's fun for you? I see some of you deep in thought. Go ahead and share in the chat when you're ready. Just a couple words. What's a way for you to reconnect with people that feels fun? Something that you would actually look forward to. Yeah, going for a walk. It can be that simple. I love going on walk and talks with friends and former colleagues. I just went one for the other day with a friend of mine, and she brought her baby. So, lots of options. A walk or coffee, sure. And some of you were saying a lot of the things that you'd like to do seem only possible in person. All of the people who you are going to reconnect with are remote. So, that poses certain challenges. It also poses certain opportunities. There are a lot of ways that you can make connecting with people online actually quite fun. And sometimes that involves things like icebreakers and or sharing images. Can each person take a turn screen sharing a photo from a recent experience they had? Maybe it was an experience in nature, and maybe they share a quick 1 minute story about why that was a special moment for them. You can get really creative. And so we can look at the internet and video calls as a barrier, or we can look at them as a bridge. And so I challenge you and I invite you to think about, how can you make it a bridge that you are excited to cross? How can you make it fun? Maybe do some thinking with the people you want to reconnect with about what would mutually be fun. And that can actually be part of your reconnecting, is like, hey, I'd love to get together with you online, but I'd love to do it in a way that's going to feel sort of fresh and exciting. Like, what ideas could we brainstorm together and come up with something really neat that we're excited, that we're looking forward to? So you don't have to figure this all out on your own. You can actually invite other people to co-create it with you. Does that resonate at all? Go ahead and throw a yes in the chat if that's sparking anything for any of you. Emojis are also welcome. Okay, great. So let's move on to mistake number 4. Drum roll, please. Number 4, not planning. This might sound like I'm going to leave it to luck. I was on a call this morning with a prospective client and they used the word lucky. I often have to control myself and sort of not start coaching someone when they use words like lucky, because you know uh, yes, there is a thing called chance, and there's a lot that we can do in terms of our mindset and our intentional actions that create the kind of conditions that invite the kind of life and world that we wish to create. So when I'm looking at who I'm going to work with, I'm looking for people who are going to take personal responsibility, people who are looking to be accountable, who are looking to become more proactive in their career and in their life. So yes, while I recognize that chance is a thing and it does have a way of intervening in all sorts of interesting and varied ways, we also do get to shape a lot of things in our life. And so if you're not planning, I'm wondering how that's impacting you. Go ahead and share on your worksheets and in the chat. If you're not planning and you're sort of saying, I'm just going to leave this whole career thing up to luck, up to chance. What does that mean that you are giving up? How is that impacting how you're going about your day-to-day life? Is that resulting in any kinds of feelings of disempowerment? And so what can you do about it? Well, you can get proactive. So I'm curious for you to put down on your worksheet and perhaps share in the chat, what's something that you can create on a topic that you're interested in? I'll give you an example. I was working with a client who was chronically underemployed. She had a couple gigs here and there, but she was without substantial work for a couple of years when she came to me. She had finally she was at her wit's end with the situation. She was really desperate to have a steady income and to do work that was stimulating to her, to be able to use her skills in a way where she was contributing to something bigger than herself, in a way where she'd be able to continue learning and growing as a professional in her field. And so one thing that we came up with for her to do was to start researching people who were doing the kind of work that she wanted to be doing. And not stop there, but actually keep going and reach out to them after she did some research on them. And then invite them to be interviewed, because one of her skill sets is communications. And a lot of people didn't write back, but a lot of people did write back. And a lot of people said yes. So once she got over that initial fear, she was able to connect with several people doing the kinds of work that she wanted to do. She interviewed them with their permission. She published the interviews. She created a basic website and was able to publish her content there, as well as articles on LinkedIn. She was able to start getting more eyes on what she was putting out there into the world. She was able to start to be seen as somebody within that ecosystem that she so badly wanted to be part of. People started to know her name. People started to think of her for opportunities. Work started coming her way. She was increasing her visibility, not simply by reaching out to people and asking for informational interviews, but by creating value, by building relationships, building rapport with people, getting to know her target industry, learning about the kinds of challenges and opportunities that people in her target role were facing on a day-to-day basis. She made herself relevant and valuable and visible. And that very quickly helped her get out of that underemployment situation that she had been experiencing chronically for 2 years. And she was able to land her dream job. And she did that for a while. And then she actually got laid off, because that happens, unfortunately. It's happened to me. It's happened to a lot of my clients. Maybe it's happened to you. It's just kind of a fact of life. So part of what I do is I work with clients to help them become more resilient. It's not about stopping layoffs from happening. That's probably not going to happen. It's about becoming resilient so that when layoffs do happen, it doesn't feel like your world is crashing down all around you and you have no idea how to pick up the pieces. And then she was able to get another dream job because she already knew what to do. And she already had this robust network and a great portfolio and a great resume and a strong LinkedIn and all the pieces of the puzzle that are necessary. So that's an idea for you. And I'm curious if any of you have any ideas that you'd like to share in the chat about something that you can create on a topic that you're interested in. Is it an article? Is it a video? Is it an interview? Is it a piece of artwork? Is it an event? What is it? 1 or 2 words. Go ahead and share in the chat. Is it an infographic? Right? We have so many possibilities these days. And I'd also love to know, what is a topic that you are curious about? What's something you want to know more about? Go ahead and write it down on your worksheet, and I invite you to share it in the chat. What are you feeling curious about? What is today stimulating for you? What is it sparking, this conversation that we're having? Some of you have said that you're looking forward to creating some artwork. Yeah, there's so many different media platforms, tools that are available to us. We don't have to try to twist ourselves into a pretzel or fit ourselves into a box that doesn't feel like us. We get to be creative. We get to be authentic. We get to be ourselves and bring that to the table. And that's enough. That's enough. When we try to be somebody else, it usually doesn't work out so great. One of you is sharing that an article could be an interesting way to help you process what you're thinking about. Yeah, absolutely. I'm working on some writing projects right now. Writing brings me great joy. I get into a state of flow. I can write for hours on end, uninterrupted. Maybe that's not you. Maybe there's something else for you. But for a lot of folks, writing is just an incredible activity for self-discovery, for learning, for communicating, sharing, connecting, especially if you share what you are writing. If you just keep it to yourself, it serves certain purposes. But if you share it with the world or a subset of the world, who knows what can come from it? It's a way to inspire, to educate, to connect, to entertain. And so what are you feeling curious about? What do you want to know more about, whether it's something having to do with you or your target field or what the next steps are? And speaking of next steps, with an increased awareness of what's getting in the way of moving forward and what needs to change to advance your goals, I invite you to be accountable by writing down on your worksheet and in the chat a specific action. This can be something really small, okay? Something very tangible that you are committing to yourself to do as a result of today's conversation. And this is important, a date. Is it December 6th? When is it that you are going to do this by? Maybe you need to look up somebody's contact information so that you can reach back out to them. Maybe you need to do a little bit of research about something. Maybe you need to find out when a local sustainability group is hosting their next meetup because you'd like to attend. Who knows what it is, but you go ahead and you identify for yourself what that next step is going to be and when you are going to do it by. And I appreciate folks who are sharing in the chat. One of you said, I heard someone say once that the skills that get you to the C-suite don't help you stay there. So you're curious about how people make the smooth transition from worker to manager to executive and how they keep going without going backwards. Yeah, so topics around leadership. And what are the skills that you need to be building, the competencies, the awareness to be successful, to advance in your career. And, I would even sort of push back on that a little bit in the sense of some people think that they're supposed to just ascend the ladder when that isn't necessarily what they actually want. And so my question would be to you, is that what you think you are supposed to be doing, or is that what you truly want? Because if you really like being an implementer, if you really like just doing the work, you may be very unhappy as a manager or a CE, whatever, right, in the C-suite. You may love it. I don't mean to dissuade you. I do mean to challenge your thinking, because sometimes people really enjoy doing the work. They think, okay, the next step is to become a manager. then they discover, I don't really like managing people. I really want to go back to what I was doing before, where I was designing, developing, creating, researching, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there's nothing wrong with that. But this really gets at knowing yourself. So are you working with a coach? Are you doing journaling? Do you have a group that you're part of? What is your practice that helps you learn about yourself? Because that is foundational to a robust career, just like having a vibrant network is essential for a robust career. And if you do decide that you really want to have, sort of be moving up that ladder, that hierarchy, great, let's do it. Let's figure out what you need to support you to do that. Is it mentors? Is it trainings? What kind of learning has to happen? What kinds of mindset shifts might need to occur? What kinds of support would help you do that? Yeah, one of you shared you've been afraid of applying to roles with the title director because you didn't know if you could handle all of that. But lately you're feeling like you don't want your job to be your whole life anyway. So I'm hearing questions about what do you want your role to be and what is the role of work in your life? Some people are perfectly content to work 60, 70, 80 hours a week. Others aren't. And in some cases, it depends. I work a lot right now while I'm continuing to build my business. I left my job a year and a half ago to go all in with my business, which I started as a side business about a decade ago. And so, yeah, there's a lot of work that's going into figuring out different tools and systems and approaches and things so I can really hone the ability to help my clients achieve amazing results as quickly as possible. I'm constantly experimenting and learning and collecting feedback. It's kind of that design thinking approach of putting things out there, gathering data, making adjustments, and doing it all over again. And someday maybe I won't be working as many hours. So things go through, peaks and valleys. And you need to know, what is this chapter in your life? What are your priorities? And how does work fit in? Sometimes we have more or less bandwidth to put into our work, our livelihood, our career. And when you're really passionate about what you're doing and you feel like it's a great fit, oftentimes you're okay with putting in a lot of time and effort because you care about it so much. And it's just, you're so driven, you're so motivated. And so I invite you, I told you I was going to have an offer for you. And then I'm going to stop recording and take a couple candid questions from folks here. So before I do that, I want to invite you to set up your career GPS call. This is an opportunity for us to dig in one-on-one so that we can explore where you are and where you might go and what are the steps to take to help you do that. So I invite you to scan the code and book a call. I do have a few more slots for this week and next. And if you're feeling motivated, you're feeling inspired, this is the logical next step for you to take. And I'll share resources with you to help you get the most out of our time together. And we can see if it makes sense to do some work together. I'm going to also put the link in the chat for those of you who don't have a device handy to scan the code. So there is that link. As I said, I'm going to turn off the camera, off the recording. Thank you so much for your involvement today. Congratulations on showing up for yourselves. That is a big deal. So I would like to recognize that. It's important to celebrate our wins and frankly, you showing up for yourself today and participating to me, that qualifies as a win. That's a big deal. So let's recognize that. And I encourage you to keep it up and book your call so that we can dig in and continue to build some momentum here, because that's one of the most important things, is for you to build momentum so that you can get unstuck and you can increase your clarity and confidence as you take intentional actions. So thank you so much to everybody for being here today.